Viewers and subscribers, welcome back to Beating the Press podcast. I am your host, Rafa. Now, coming up in today's podcast, we're going to be looking back or reviewing the two big games, the two exciting games which took place over the weekend. First up, we will look at, Chelsea running away 2-0 winners over Fulham in that London derby. And of course, the controversial game of the weekend, the one that has everyone talking, Spurs finding a way to beat nine-man Liverpool 2-1 in that one. And, Spurs remain unbeaten. Liverpool unbeaten run comes to an end, and in the process, picking up their first loss of this EPL season as well. But viewers and subscribers, let's first jump in and look at Chelsea versus Fulham. Chelsea coming away or walking away 2-0 winners, two quick fire goals, I must say, in that first half. And Fulham really had no answers. It was a toothless Fulham performance. And as we spoke about it in the previous show, not much firepower up front from this Fulham team. Watching the game, they did manage to carve out a couple decent chances, and you could say a one-on-one with the keeper in the second half, but the keeper stood firm and Fulham was unable to really capitalize on these chances which were carved out. Of course, the Chelsea defense continued to hold strong as well. This is one of the positives, I must say, from Chelsea all seasons. While they were not necessarily scoring goals or getting the result they desired, the defensive unit have not been leaking goals either. Currently they have one of the better defensive records in the English Premier League, and another clean sheet under their belt. Definitely a positive Pochettino can take forward from this one. And of course, with Modric getting off the mark after 10 months, a Chelsea player finally getting his name on the score sheet. A good cross there by Colwell, playing, left back, picking out Modric, who took it down inside the box and slapped it away, going through the keeper's legs, I believe, in that one. And it was a decent enough finish, and that was his first goal in Chelsea blue after 10 long months. The drought is finally over. Hopefully he can now push on from strength to strength. But viewers and subscribers, as I mentioned in the previous show, Chelsea has turned the corner. It seems ever since they got their new sponsorship, the results have now shifted, and Pochettino seemed to have found an 11 or a group of players he seemed to be working with. And, once the process continues, hopefully the results will continue to flow as well. Fulham, on the other hand, really looking, a real mid-table to lower table team currently. Of course, goals win matches, and the loss of Mitrovic is really now telling on this team. They did manage to create a few chances and half chances, but again, Jimenez, he's not the striker he once was. Vinicius, I think he belongs more in the Championship than in the Premier League. And of course, other players such as Pereira, D. Cordova-Reid, who was on the bench in this one, Harry Willian, just not enough goals in these players to really, make much of a dent in terms of, the goal scoring prowess. But they need to find goals from somewhere. Otherwise, they may be staring down, a relegation battle in the near future. So definitely, Marco Silva need to find some way for this team to get on the score sheet. It was another toothless performance, I must say. And even though a few chances were created, the goalkeeper managed to save, or, players in front of goal was just not clinical enough. And the same could be said of Chelsea as well. Chelsea got a second through Broja, but that was an unfortunate, ricochet type goal. The defender there trying to, after making a mistake to start, Cole Palmer picked it, played it through to Broja, and in an effort to clear his lines, Tim Ream pretty much accidentally popped it onto the legs of Broja, and it was in the back of the net. The goalkeeper could not do much, but it was a very fortunate finish for Broja, coming off an injury. And this goal, even though rather dubious, will do a lot for his confidence going forward. Of course, he's filling in for Jackson, who was suspended for this game. So, 2 goals from the Chelsea 11. The goals have been hard to come by of late. So this is definitely a positive, and I'm sure the team and Pochettino will take a lot of confidence from this win. This one being a derby as well, and this win coming away from home against a local derby, team in the form of Fulham. And the media and the narrative is now slowly but surely seem to be shifting around in favor of Pochettino and this Chelsea team. Little by little, the heads are turning and Chelsea are now carving out a few wins. We can only hope that this type of performance will continue going forward. But much work to do for Fulham. Not much positives. The only positives I could say is that they did manage to create a few chances. They were in the game for long periods as well, but they failed to really trouble the score sheet, after Chelsea took those 2 goals very early, back to back, you could say. They were pretty much in control of the game. Fulham huffed and puffed, but really, could not find anything out of this one. Marco Silva showed on a few subs. And they looked a better team for those substitutions, I must say. Carney is one who impressed me, that number 10, which Fulham brought on. He looks a quality player, I must say. If only he could remain fit and pretty much build up his fitness, Fulham may yet stand a chance, but they are definitely missing a goal scorer. And I believe January can't come too soon for this team when they must get a quality number 9. A quality number 9 is what Fulham is missing. And, possibly the same could be said of Chelsea. They definitely need a quality number 9 as well. But when you look at the open market, these type of players are not only expensive, but they are very hard to come by. So, this one, Chelsea running away 2-0 winners. Fulham have to now bounce back. And Chelsea will be looking to build on this and move from strength to strength, That's pretty much the essence of it. But we move, viewers and subscribers, we move on to Spurs versus Liverpool. Spurs running away 2-1 winners over 9-man Liverpool. A very exciting yet controversial game, especially with these decision making from, the VAR officials that, outside of being a very good game, that has been the talking point. Not many persons are talking about a result. Persons are focused on the fact that VAR made a huge error in this one, which ultimately determined the winner of the game and how the game really transformed and played out. Of course, at 0-0, Liverpool went down to 10 men. Curtis Jones getting a rather, what I would say, controversial red card. For me, not a red. A yellow, yes, but definitely not a red card. And that was one of the bones of contention and debate for this game. Liverpool went down to 10. Red card to Curtis Jones. He had to go. Son scored. Brilliant goal, down the Spurs left. Gomez was up against Richarlison, and Richarlison played it in that danger zone, and Son was there to pretty much tap it home for a 1-0 lead. But the big moment came even before that goal, when a goal from Diaz was ruled out for offside. So Liverpool should have taken the lead with 10 men. But the VAR officials dropped the ball. The VAR officials got this one incredibly wrong. Clearly, upon replays, we could see that Diaz was clearly onside and took a brilliant goal. This was when Liverpool was now playing with 10 and scores were leveled at 0-0. Diaz taking that goal would have made it 1-0 Liverpool, but it was not to be. The VAR officials made a huge blunder by disallowing that goal for offside when subsequent replay shows clearly the player was onside. And that was a very controversial moment in the game, game changing. Spurs then went on through Son, as mentioned before, to take the lead, but Gakpo managed to pull one back just before the halftime mark. And going into halftime, it was 1-0. So even with the 10 men, Liverpool not only was hanging in the game, but they were still creating chances and putting the Spurs team under pressure. Very energetic game, high pressing game, both teams looking to outwit each other. Very good matchup in the midfield. Sarr, Maddison. Maddison had a very influential role to play. And to a large extent, he managed to accomplish that role. But Liverpool hanged in there, 10 men, experience with 10 men, of course, Newcastle, and they managed to get a victory out of that one, but it was a rough one. It was definitely a rough one. So Liverpool with 10 men still managed to hang in that one, They were fighting tooth and nail. And of course, halftime came. Jota picked up a second yellow. So now, he is now given a red card. So now Liverpool is down to 9 men. Tactics had to change, What would have been a very competitive fixture really turned out into one which was determined by the referees, in my opinion. And even with the odds against Liverpool, they still managed to put up a very spirited fight, Of course, Alisson in goal digged out some world-class saves. At this point, Liverpool was definitely conceding possession to Spurs and was pretty much on the defensive. At this point in time, they had to go 2 banks of 4 with Salah playing for some time the lone forward role, so to speak, as the team was now down to 9. And it was at the death that Spurs managed to crack open this Liverpool defense through an own goal by Matip. Spurs made an attack down the right side, and a very vicious cross was put in the box, and in an attempt to clear, Matip put through his own net. And at that point, so late in the game, it was really game, set, match. Spurs going ahead 2-1. And that was pretty much the game in a nutshell. But this one was very controversial. The referee decisions, especially for disallowing the Diaz goal, that was the major talking point, because if that goal was to score, who to tell what may have happened in the game, One of the hardest things to do in football is to score, and to see that a quite legitimate and brilliantly taken goal was ruled out for offside, even with VAR in play. That was the most shocking thing of all. VAR is definitely dropping the ball, and consistency is definitely required. In the previous years, we saw where lines were being drawn on the screen. Now we're seeing no lines. We're seeing no lines, which oftentimes are used to determine whether or not the player is offside or onside, where it's quite visible to each other. In this case, no lines were drawn, and the wrong decision was made. Everyone can agree that the wrong decision was made. So that is something the officials need to look at going forward. But at the end of the day, as hard as it may be, as they often say, the referee decision is final. So whether we agree or disagree with the decision, at the end of the day, Liverpool, it will show, lost this one, and they now sit fourth in the table. You know, Spurs pretty much, unbeaten thus far and sits ahead of them currently. Man City tops the table, even though they picked up a very surprising loss to Wolves. They got beaten by Wolves, and they have now also registered a loss. But uh, Spurs remain unbeaten, and they are there about in the top four with Arsenal as well. So it's a very competitive season thus far. Massive decision, massive implications, as was mentioned in the previous podcast, that this game would definitely have a massive implication. And it turns out just like that. It's quite uncanny because I really did not see Liverpool winning this one as I predicted. You know, I had predicted a draw, but I could not see them winning. And so said, so done. It was Spurs for, whether through the refereeing decision that came out the victors in this one. And, Liverpool definitely have to pick up the pieces now and try to bounce back. It's oftentimes a mental or a psychological game. But even in the preview podcast, I did warn that Liverpool keeps going behind in these games. And again, this was the case. They went behind again. Son got the first goal and Gagpo pulled back the equalizer. But it just puts you in a different mind frame when you're chasing the game. And again, this was the case. So Klopp definitely has work to do, especially with the defense. That is now the weak spot, I believe, in this Liverpool team. The midfield crisis of last season has, I would say, been filled. Soboslai really started off the season well. McAllister keep the tempo and the ball ticking over. And, Jones has held his own in there. Endo came on, did fairly well. So the midfield is clicking, you could say. It's now, and the forward line is clicking. Not lots of options up front. So with a variety of players to choose from as well. But the defense is where the team is really leaking. So some fixes are needed in the defense. Spurs, on the other hand, the Spurs machine continue to roll on. Players are in fine form. The team is playing confident. The players seem to love the tactics and the instructions of the manager. The manager is getting it right in terms of tactics and player selection, and the results are coming. Spurs is really going through a purple patch at this stage of the season. And, if they have aspirations for a top four or even a title challenge, they have to keep that going. It has to be a mental game at this point. But they can't afford for complacency to now creep into the teams. So far they have been lucky with injury, no major injuries to speak of for the most part. And, players are really enjoying their new role. It's been a breath of fresh air, so to speak, and the results are there to show. So, your hats most goes off to, the Spurs team. Definitely playing some good quality football, very easy on the eyes. Players seem to be playing in their natural roles or in roles which suit their skill set. Maddison has been a standout this season, and he was at it again in this game. Of course, as mentioned, this one is hard to judge since Liverpool was playing for large patches with 10 and then 9 men. So it's going to be hard to judge in terms of the quality output of the players on the Spurs team. But of course, even with 10 men or even with 9, you're still playing against an opponent of quality. So you still have to give of your best. And, definitely the Spurs team really gave a good stern performance. Some very unsung heroes, especially in the back line. That Dutch defender, Van der Veen, he's becoming more and more like a Van Dijk, to be honest, a very unsung hero. He's not spoken about much, but he is definitely having a solid season thus far. And he's one of the key reasons that this Spurs team is really clicking over. He's that calm presence. So while Romero may be a bit rash, a bit erratic, it is Van der Ven which is really holding up that Spurs centre back role and that Spurs defense. Pero and Udogi as well has been playing some really good football. So this Spurs team is really playing well, really knocking it around. So too is this Liverpool team, but I am concerned about this Liverpool defense, and I was concerned about it from the start of the season, and not much has changed. Currently, it's a case where the team has to now outscore opponent. The defense is not very good to rely on, because you're letting in goals. So it's as if you now have to outscore your opponents. But it is what it is. We definitely enjoy the weekend. Lots of controversy, lots of talking points. Chelsea picking up a win, Spurs winning as well, Arsenal winning, City losing. It's an exciting league. It's exciting times ahead. The title race is definitely on, and it's a pack. It's jumbled up there at the top of the league currently. No team is really breaking away. Every week, positions change. Teams are jostling for a position. But after 7 games, the league is now beginning to take shape. The men are now separating themselves from the boys, and you can see the league really taking shape, taking hold. But we definitely enjoyed the weekend, and we're looking forward to another exciting weekend. Of course, we will be back, viewers and subscribers, to do our regular preview show of the big matches coming up on the weekend. I just like to thank you, viewers and subscribers, for continuing to support the channel. Of course, please continue to share. And if you haven't subscribed as yet, please feel free to do so. This will help us to continue to grow and to continue to progress. But until next time, this is Rafa signing off.